With America's work culture going through a radical shift right now, how can small businesses survive? Well, I'm speaking to a power couple right now that are making this happen. They are Bryan and Shannon Miles, co-founders of Belay, a company that sources virtual assistants for businesses and entrepreneurs. They've been so successful, they even got the buy-in of Shark Tank star Damon John, who was our guest last week. And welcome to the show this week. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's really good to meet you.
I think in my 11 years doing this, this is my first husband-wife team on the show. So welcome. I'm excited to learn about your company that I wanted to profile, especially given the context that we're living in. So just give us a primer on what you guys do right now.
Sure. Well, what we found early on in our business career is that finding great people, especially if your organization is growing really quick, finding great people is really hard to do. And so we created an organization called Belay, where we provide leaders that are very busy or out of breath with wonderful virtual assistants, bookkeepers, and webmasters.
And so right now, given the current environment, you're actually seeing unprecedented demand, correct?
We definitely serve a lot of small businesses who have been impacted by the current crisis. So while the majority of our business is not only stable and moving forward, we have experienced loss with some of our clients, which has been really hard to see. They've had to shut their doors and therefore cancel, but not many. And in the new leads that we're seeing come in, no longer asking the question, how does working remote work? We've all been forced to do it.
Isn't that incredible? You guys were so ahead of the curve. It's like you're prepared for this, right? That's the issue, is that many businesses were not prepared for this, but you're really here at the right time.
Yeah, a lot of leaders scratch their head, like, how do you work and lead from home? And we've been doing that for 10 years.
Right.
We've got a team of over 1,100 people. All over the United States. We all work from home. We've never had an office. And so we felt like we've been able to give a lot of resources away for free, teaching people how to do this.
You have over 1,100 team members across the country, as you said. How hard is that, though, to hold meetings and make people feel like they're part of a corporate culture?
That's such a great question, because it is so important to focus on your culture in any organization, but especially when you're working remote. So we host a lot of our meetings on Zoom. We have clear expectations about responsiveness and availability so that nobody's shooting in the dark or missing the mark for what does winning look like in my role. And we expect our team to bring their whole selves to work. And so that means establishing personal relationships and connections at work, and not just, coming in to do the job. And so we create platforms for them to do that.
So tell us a little bit about how the inspiration for the company came about. How did you think about this 10 years ago, and where's the name from?
Sure. So belay is a rock climbing term, and I'm a mountain climber. So we use the term belay to basically say, hey, it's time for you to go ahead and climb higher. And that's what we do at Belay. Our virtual assistants and our bookkeepers and our webmasters, essentially, they act in a support role to our clients as they climb higher. So it really has something personal to us, especially if you've ever been climbing and you're in a snowstorm and you hear the words on belay. That's basically like saying, hey, I've got you. Go ahead and keep climbing.
Okay. And the inspiration for the company, how did you think of it? How did this come about?
So 10 years ago, when Bryan was working with his virtual assistant, which wasn't really even a popular term then, and the prevailing model was overseas and not dedicated. So through his experience with his virtual assistant, who is actually now our CEO in the organization, we said, what if we could create a system around this, make it relational, provide dedicated resources to organizations? Then they could have access to amazing people that they never otherwise would have been able to. And so really it was born out of, looking at what was popular at the time and figuring out a way to make it better.
So, for example, does a company need to be a certain size? Or, for example, say if I needed a virtual assistant? which
No,
I absolutely do need one.
Yeah.
You're going to need one all the more next week, probably.
Yes.
It's really what we say is we're targeting out of breath, very busy leaders. And what that could be is a very large corporation, and we serve a lot of them, down to startups, to for-profits and nonprofits. We work with, attorneys and physicians, and we work with authors, and we work with pastors. So we work across a wide spectrum over 30 different industries today.
Very cool, very cool. And Bryan, and you weren't just ahead of the curve with this company. You also wrote a book called Virtual Culture, which I believe you have right there handy a few years ago, that talks about the benefits of working remotely. Tell us about your vision.
Well, I think a lot of people that are, dealing with this current mess we're in, a lot of them can't, obviously the virus is terrible, but they actually like or love working from home. And that's what we've seen for providing this opportunity for so many around our country, working from home and being able to have that good work-life balance, where they can be a mom and they can, get their kids off the bus stop and contribute to a company in a meaningful way. And so we've just seen how people have really rallied around our company and our culture. And that's why I wrote the book, Virtual Culture. We won an award a few years ago with Entrepreneur Magazine for top company culture. And we did that without an office. And so a lot of people ask us how in the world did you pull that off? And so the book was written as our playbook for how we created a meaningful company and its culture without an office.
It's interesting you say that. And that's something I've been thinking about, is how this will, we're not going to go back to the world we knew, right?
That's
and
right.
I think, and I'd like to know if you agree, that a lot of businesses will realize like, oh, wait a second. We can actually do a lot of work remotely.
Yeah.
A lot of employees, as you mentioned, are happy, and they're realizing, hey, I don't have to drive for 2 hours, be stuck in traffic to go work in a cubicle, not speak to the people next to me anyways, to then drive home for another 2 hours. And I could have just been at home.
Yeah.
We've heard from a lot of people that their quality of life, although this is a really stressful situation, but their quality of life is actually improving. They're starting to work each day after taking a walk, having coffee, spending time with their family, and then they're jumping into work instead of working through that 2-hour commute like you were talking about. So they're already arriving refreshed and ready to be productive for the day.
Really, really interesting. And finally, Shannon and Bryan, as I mentioned to you offline, I don't normally cover certain specific companies, but I thought your story was so inspiring, especially given the current economic conditions we're living in. So for, small businesses and entrepreneurs listening, what would you like to say to them?
I would encourage them. We started our organization during the Great Recession, and what seemed like a really risky move at the time ended up being the most secure thing that we could have created for our family. And so while the storm is around us right now and things feel very uncertain, I would just encourage them to hold on and leverage this opportunity to improve things in their business, to meet their customers where they are, and to grow as a leader. The storm will end. And, if you use this time right and make the most of it, I think you can actually come out better on the other side.
Thank you so much for joining us. Your story is really inspirational, and I think we could all use that. Especially now. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. It was great to be with you.
Thank you. And thank you for watching. We'll have much more for you, so be sure to stay tuned.